Hi, I'm Mona with the Office for Mac Group. Excel is a powerful spreadsheet and data analysis program, but to get the most out of it, you first need to understand the basics. In this video series, I'm going to introduce you to some of the skills that you will be able to use in all Excel workbooks. Keep in mind that you can pause and resume the video at any time to view the tutorial at your own pace. Okay, let's get started. When you open Excel, the first thing you will see is the Excel Workbook Gallery. From here, you can start with a blank workbook, open an already saved workbook, or create a new one based on a template. For now, let's create a new blank workbook. Here in the left pane, click All. Click Excel Workbook, and then click Choose. Notice that a blank, unsaved workbook titled Workbook 1 appears. By the way, to get back to the Excel Workbook Gallery at any time, here on the File menu, just click New from Template. Or to create a new workbook without opening the Excel Workbook Gallery, click New Workbook. In the next lesson, we'll look at some of the user interface elements you'll use most often in Excel. In a new workbook, you can just click in a cell and begin entering data. But before we do that, let's take a quick tour of the main areas that you'll use to do your work. Moving from top to bottom, first you have the menu bar. Each menu has commands associated with the menu name. File, Edit, and View are the ones you'll probably use the most. Once you become familiar with the menus in Excel, you will find that they are similar in the other Office applications. When a menu item is grayed out, like this one, it means that it is not available based on what you are currently doing in the workbook. Next is the standard toolbar, which shows the name of the workbook, in this case a generic Workbook 1, because we haven't saved it yet. The toolbar also contains buttons for some of the most common tasks, such as opening, saving, or printing a workbook. If you're not sure what a button does, position your pointer over the button and read the tip that appears. Next is the ribbon, which is new in Office 2011. Each tab on the ribbon gives you quick access to features and tools associated with the tab. The tab you'll probably use most in Excel is the Home tab to format data, which we'll do in a later lesson. To show or hide the ribbon, click the Active tab, or click this button on the right side of the ribbon. This large grid area is called the worksheet. Each workbook can have multiple worksheets, or sheets, but we're only going to be using one sheet in this video. A worksheet is made up of cells. Each cell is an intersection between a column and a row. For example, this cell is the intersection between column A and row 1, so the cell address is A1. The active cell always has a highlight around it. These blue bars on the side and bottom of the workbook are the scroll bars. You can drag them to see the parts of the workbook that aren't currently visible. In the next lesson, we'll learn some basics about moving around the worksheet. Before you begin entering data in your worksheet, you need to know how to move between cells. Let's use the mouse, keyboard, and menu to move around in the sheet. First, click once in cell B2. If you double-click a cell, you go into data editing mode, which we will look at in a later lesson. You can see that the cell's column heading B and row heading 2 appear in a darker gray. Also, the cell's address is listed here in the name box next to the formula bar. To move one cell to the right, press the Tab key once. Cell C2 becomes the active cell. Press the down arrow twice and you move down 2 cells. Press the left arrow twice and you move 2 cells to the left. Cell A4 is now the active cell. Another way to jump to a specific cell is by using the menu. On the Edit menu, click Go To, then type A1, click OK, and cell A1 becomes the active cell. Moving between cells is a basic concept, but it's something you will do in every worksheet. In the next lesson, we'll begin entering data. In Excel, data can be text, numbers, or a combination of the two. To enter data, you simply type in the cell where you want the data to appear. Let's enter some basic text and numerical data in the sheet now. In cell B1, type North, then press Tab. In cell C1, type East, and then press the right arrow key. In cell D1, type South, and then press Return. To commit data to a cell, you can press Tab, Return, or any of the arrow keys. The key you press determines which cell becomes the active cell. Now to fill out the sheet a bit more, in cell A2 type January, in cell A3 February, in cell A4 March, finally in cell B2 enter 5,000, 10,000 in cell B3, and 15,000 in cell B4. Notice how text data, the months and regions appear aligned to the left of the cell, while the numerical data is aligned to the right. In the next lesson, we'll learn to select and format data, part of which will be to change the alignment of some of the data we just entered. To make data on your sheet easier to read and understand, you can format it. Let's format the regions to appear bold and centered in the cell. First, you have to indicate which cells you want to format. You do this by selecting the cells. Click cell B1. When the mouse cursor shows as a white cross, click, then drag across cells C1 and D1 and release the mouse. The highlight around the three cells indicates that they are selected. Now on the Home tab, here under the Font group, click this button to make the text bold. And under the Alignment group, click this button to align the text in the center of the cells. By the way, if you're not sure what a button does, rest the pointer over the button for a second to see a tip. Now let's format the numerical data as currency. Just like you did with the text data, select the cells to format. Then here under the Number group, click the Currency button. If you click this small arrow next to the button, you can select other currency symbols. There's also an option to customize the currency format. Most of the formatting options that you will probably use are available here on the ribbon. If you can't find an option on the ribbon, here on the Format menu, click Cells for access to all the formatting options. Once you have formatted data, you might want to reuse the data or formatting in other locations on your sheet, which is what we'll do in the next lesson. If you have data in formatting on your sheet that you want to reuse, you can easily copy it to other cells without having to re-enter or reformat the data. Let's copy this bold and center alignment formatting from the regions to the months. Select cell B1 or any of the cells that use the formatting that you want to copy. Now on the standard toolbar, click this button known as the Format Painter. Notice that the mouse cursor appears as a small white cross and paintbrush, and a moving marquee appears around the selected cell to indicate that you're in Format Painter mode. Now select or paint cells A2, A3, and A4. And the data in those cells now appears formatted just like cell B1. A couple of tips on Format Painter. If you want to format or paint several non-adjacent cells, double-click the Format Painter button. And to get out of Format Painter mode, just click the button again or press Escape. Now let's copy this numerical data to the other regions. As you did when formatting, first click the cells to copy, in this case cells B2, B3, and B4. Then on the Edit menu, click Copy. If you prefer using the keyboard instead of menus, keyboard shortcuts are listed here next to the menu items. This is a symbol with a Command key and means hold down Command and then press C. Once the data is copied, a moving marquee appears around the copied cells. Now click in cell C2 and click Edit, Paste, or use the keyboard shortcut Command V. Then click in cell D2 and do the same thing. As you can see, you can get an exact copy of the data, including the currency formatting, in all of the cells. You can continue pasting the copied data anywhere on the sheet until you copy another selection. But let's use the Edit Undo command, or Command Z, to undo this. To hide the marquee around the copied text, press Escape. In the next lesson, we'll make some changes to the data entered on the sheet. If you ever enter data incorrectly or just want to change something, you can easily edit data on your sheet. Let's look at several different ways to edit data. To replace all of the data in a cell, just click once in the cell and type over it. Even though we changed the number, the currency formatting still applies to the new data. To make a small change, maybe change this amount to 1,000 instead of 10,000, double-click the cell. Now we're in cell editing mode and can change the data directly in the cell. To move around in the cell data, use the left and right arrow keys or use your mouse to select specific data. When you're done editing, press Return or Tab to commit the change. To get out of cell editing mode without committing a change, just press Escape. Another way to edit data is to make the change in the formula bar. If you don't see the formula bar, here on the View menu, make sure a check mark appears next to Formula Bar. Click once in the cell and make the changes just like you did in cell editing mode. To commit the edits from the formula bar, press Return or click in another cell. To delete all data from a cell, select the cell and then press Delete. If you're using a MacBook, you will need to hold down the Fn or Function key located in the lower left corner of your keyboard as you press Delete. Or if you prefer, you can use any of the clear options located here on the Home tab. But let's undo those deletions and move on to the next lesson where we'll learn to insert and resize columns. Just because you've arranged your data in a certain way doesn't mean that you're stuck with it. Let's say that you want to make a copy of this data in column D and have it appear in a new column between columns B and C. First, click the column heading for column D. This selects all data in the column. Now click Edit, then Copy, and you can see the marquee again, which indicates that the selection is copied. Now hold down Control and then click on the heading for column C, or you can right-click if your mouse has that option, and then click Insert Copied Cells. Everything shifts to the right and you have a copy of the cells. Now click in cell C1, type Northwest Region, and then press Return. To resize the column width to fit the text, point to this border between the column headings, and then double-click. To resize the column to any width, instead of double-clicking, click and drag the border. If you want the text to wrap to the width of the column, select the cell or the entire column. Then here on the Home tab, click Wrap Text. If you ever see these pound signs in the cell, it means that the column is not wide enough to display the data. Also, keep in mind that you can select and insert rows in the same way you do columns. In the next lesson, we'll finish up by saving the workbook to a new folder.